Hi Year 4, so for today's maths lesson you're going to be rounding to the nearest 10, 100 and 1000. This is a recap of what we've already done, so it shouldn't be too tricky for you. So first of all, rounding to the nearest 10. When we are rounding to the nearest 10, we look to our ones column to tell us the answer. So the rule is 5 or more we raise the score, 4 or less we let it rest. So first of all, we need to work out whether we'd be rounding it up or rounding it down and what those numbers would be. So if we was rounding 24 up, the next 10 would be 30, wouldn't it? And if we were rounding it back down, it would be rounding to 20. So we take a look at our ones column. There's a 4 in our ones column. Let's apply the rule. 5 or more we raise the score, 4 or less we let it rest. So we're going to be rounding 24 down to just 20. Okay, next number, 667. Again, we still look at our ones column to tell us the answer for this. It's a 7 in our ones column, but we need to know whether we're rounding it up or down and what numbers those would be. So the next 10 on from 667 would be 670, wouldn't it? And if it was letting it rest at the 10 that it's already reached, that would be 660. There's a 7 in our ones column. So the 7 would round up, wouldn't it? If we apply our rule, that means that we would round to the nearest 10, being 670. Okay, next number, 2,385. This is a bigger number, but we still look to our ones column. We need to work out what two numbers it could possibly be. What's the next 10 and what 10 has it already reached that we'd be rounding it down to? So if we were rounding it down, it would be 2,380. And if we were rounding this number up, we will be rounding it to 2,390, wouldn't it? Because that's the 10 that it's already reached, 80, and 90 is the next 10 on. There is a 5 in our ones column. So it's 5 or more we raise a score, 4 or less we let it rest. The 5 means that we would round it up to 2,390. Okay, rounding to the nearest 100. So when we're rounding to the nearest 100, we look at our tens column and we apply the same rule of 5 or more we raise a score, 4 or less we let it rest. So 143. So what 100 would we be rounding it to? What multiple of 100? So if we were rounding this up, it would be 200. If we was rounding it down, we'll be rounding it to 100. So we look in our tens column to tell us the answer. There is a 4 in our tens column, meaning that we will be rounding it down to 100 because it is closer to 100, isn't it? Next number, 3,450. Even though it's a bigger number, we still look to our tens column. So if we were rounding this number up, the next 100 on from 400 is 500. So our possible answers are either 3,500, or 3,400. They are our multiples of 100 that we could possibly round up or down to. There is a 5 in our tens column. If we apply the rule, we would round the 5 up, meaning that rounding to the nearest 100, we would our answer would be 3,500. Okay, when we are rounding, we are basically saying which multiple it is closer to. So when we are looking at our tens, our hundreds, and our thousands, we are saying whether the number is closer to each multiple. So take a look at this number line. It's saying which multiple of 1,000 is each number closest to. When it's put like this, you can actually see which number it is closest to. So our rule is 5 or more we raise a score, 4 or less we let it rest. When you put it like this, you can kind of see which multiple it's closer to. But let's apply our rules anyway. When we are rounded to the nearest 1,000, we look in our hundreds column. So if you take a look at this first number, 6,010, we can clearly see on this number line it is closer to 6,000. So that number, we would round it down to 6,000, wouldn't we? 6,250. We can see that it's closer to 6,000 than 7,000, can't we? However, let's go through our rules. So we'd look to our hundreds column, there's a 2 there. We all know that we round 2 down, don't we? Okay, the next one is 6,605. So that's not quite clear. It's almost in the middle, isn't it? But let's apply our rule. It's got a 6 in our hundreds column, meaning that we would round it up to 7,000. Same with the next number, 6,703. There's a 7 in our hundreds column. The rule is 5 or more we raise a score, 4 or less we let it rest. That will be rounded